Um, Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to episode 9 of the Shift panelcast, Leading Social Change. We are back as a bit of a hybrid this week, so we're live. We're going to put it on our website, so we'll still be a webinar that you can download, and we'll also be going the panelcast. So hopefully we're making everyone happy with this. If you have any questions for the people who have joined us live, please put your questions down in the chat box. If you go to the bottom of your screen, click on the chat, then you can put any questions in there that I will then redirect to one of our panelists. Our purpose behind Panelcast is to shift mindsets for a positive change, specifically within the sports, entertainment and events industries. It's fair to say that there's been quite a bit of uncertainty in the last few weeks. In this world, not just about our environment, but socially, economically, and with the environment. However, there's also a huge force of good coming from individuals and from brands. And today's episode, we wanted to celebrate that, explore it, and be part of this movement for change. So I'm going to introduce Livvy Drake. Hi, Livvy.
Hello.
Livvy is a sustainability and behaviour change consultant, and Livvy's worked with the likes of Google Next and Cisco Live to develop their sustainability strategies for events. Liv and I actually caught up in January, and we had a semi-short conversation around events, and Livvy actually was the catalyst for me to come back into our business and look at what our supply chains were. And we actually changed our factories over at the beginning of the year. So I thought Livvy would be a fantastic person to come on and join us. Then we also have Andrew Davies. Hi, Andrew.
How you doing?
Hello. Andrew is from B Corp. He is the CEO of Blab Australia, New Zealand, and works with brands such as Patagonia, to drive sustainability change through brands and organisations. I'm actually going to let Andrew talk a bit more about B Corp because it's an absolutely fascinating not-for-profit that we have been fortunate enough to go through the B Corp certification process this year. So I'm going to let Andrew speak about that. We've also had some great questions come through since we announced Livvy and Andrew, so we've added those into today. All right, so let's start. Welcome to Leading Social Change. So I'm going to start with a classic question. So this is to you all. What is your favourite event that you have attended, or that you have been part of, or that you've just simply seen and want to go to?
Who do you want to go first?
Andrew.
Okay. One of them, it's a difficult one because how do you capture so many different events? But I remember going quite early on to a Salesforce conference and getting completely blown away at what sort of a next level sales event looks like, and the way they put together a series of different speakers and activities was pretty extraordinary at the time. I think that many other tech businesses have followed their lead, but I'm not sure anyone quite surpasses Salesforce in terms of scale, particularly when they take over cities like San Francisco. And the one that I always love to get to, that's a little out of left field, but just the experience of it. I'd love to get to a Burning Man one day, get out in the desert and just do something very different. So that's on the want to do list.
Nice.
Have you been there, Livvy? That's what we're gonna.
Liv, have you been to a Burning Man?
No, I haven't. It's in the sustainable festival world. They come and talk a lot, and it's always one there. But it's one of the ones. There's a few questions about the principles around it, but that's I won't go into that too much. But is it ethical?
They're a very sustainable event, actually.
In principle, yes, but there's questions about whether people just go and take all their rubbish, because they have a no leave policy. So you take all your rubbish away with you, but potentially people just take them to the nearest Indigenous American reservation, and then it gets burnt. and things like that. And there is a question of, actually, if you want to deliver a sustainable event, then you actually, as an event organizer, take responsibility for the waste, because then you know what actually happens to it. This is my world.
We'll get into that. You want to speak.
We've only got an hour, Livvy.
CT's from the world of motorsports, so
Yeah.
we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, we have that. We won't go into that. We talked about Bathurst before, but that's probably on the same.
But
what about your event?
So I would say, there's a festival in the UK called Shambhala, and it encapsulates sustainability. It has an amazing community spirit. It's really fun. There's lots of workshops. Everyone gets dressed up every day, and there's an amazing sense of coming together and making things happen. And I actually, after deciding it was my favourite event, I actually got the chance to work there for 3 years as a sustainability manager. Wasn't as fun working there, but yeah.
And I'm going to say, I'm so, we're 9 episodes in now, so I've touched on quite a few of our events, but I actually wanted to touch on something that wasn't one of our events, but maybe one of my first event experience or event memories, which we always talk about being such an amazing part of what we do. And it was around the World Expo 88, and I'm not sure if that is showing my age or not, but I remember I grew up on the Gold Coast, and I remember us driving to Brisbane to go and experience this expo, World Expo 88, and walking into this world of experiences. And I'd never been overseas. I was still a kid at that point, and I remember thinking how incredible and exciting this whole space was, and the scale and the excitement of it and the complexity, and I think for me it sparked a love of events at an early age for me, and so that's something that sticks in my memory from quite a long time ago. And I think we'll get into it later, but I think this is one of the things, or we probably touch on it in every episode, but one of the power of events, of live events.
Perfect. I just realised I was on mute. Sorry. Great. All right. So, Andrew, could you please tell us a bit more about B Corp and your position within B Corp?
Sure. So I'll try and just give you the brief rundown, maybe to preemptively answer a few questions as well. So certified B corporations, or B Corps, you might hear as well, they're for-profit businesses that are certified to meet the highest standards of social and environmental performance. The key thing to understand is that the certification is holistic, so it looks at all aspects of the business. And a useful comparison is to think of something like a fair trade coffee certification, which really goes into how that coffee is purchased and a little bit about how it's grown. What a B Corp certification looks at is the entirety of a business. So fair trade's a really important program, and you can take comfort if you're purchasing products that are fair trade certified. But if you're also interested in maybe the shop where you purchase them, or the business, understanding how it's looking after its staff as well as its environmental footprint and its governance structures, then a whole of business certification really takes a deep dive look into the broad area of sustainability. So in order to become a certified B Corp, businesses have to undertake our online assessment, which has a couple of 100 different questions across 5 main criteria. So it looks at the governance of a business, so its ethics and governance structures. It looks at the environmental footprint of the business, which again encompasses a whole lot of different considerations. And we'll ask, as all our questions do, they're designed to correspond to different industries and geographies and so on as well. The assessment's not the same for every business. We've also got some questions around community and the final area is customer. So it looks at the business model itself. So a customer question will really start to explore who is the business there to serve and what benefits does it deliver inherently built into its business model. So a whole lot of questions it asks. You have to answer them. You have to get a total of 80 points out of a possible couple of 100. That's enormously challenging. Most businesses land somewhere in the 50, 60 point range when they first do it, and then they have to improve their performance across any one of those criteria to reach the benchmark 80 points. But getting the points isn't enough. You also need to make a legal commitment to embed a broad social benefit purpose into your business and to engage in what we broadly call stakeholder governance, which really consists of not just prioritising shareholders, but taking into account a wider range of stakeholders when you're making decisions at the highest level. So you need to perform to a high level, you need to make a legal commitment, and then the third area is you need to commit to transparency, which is really done for you because all B Corps are listed on our directory, where you can dive into their performance and understand exactly what they're doing well. So really, it's holistic, it's comprehensive, it's enormously challenging, and it's designed to really highlight the highest performing businesses. And so the theory is all about saying, hey, there's some businesses out there that are deliberately operating differently. We exist to identify them, to verify that performance. So they're put through a very challenging process of being assessed. It's not simply self-assessment. And then we use that community to highlight those good practices and try and share the idea of using business as a force for good. So that's broadly what we do. I look after the Australia and New Zealand region. There's a series of B Labs around the world, and we're not-for-profit organisations for the most part, in a global alliance where we each look after different regions. And our sort of headquarters, if you like, it's a bit of a loose global network, but our headquarters are mostly located in Philadelphia and New York on the east coast of the US, but increasingly we're getting staffed from all around the world. So for me, I'm pretty lucky. I get to look after Australia and New Zealand. We've got a small team based in Melbourne, and we sort of act a bit like an industry association body as well, where we look after the community of B Corps in this region, and we run events and campaigns and do different things with the B Corps once they're certified. I could go on all day about that assessment.
No, that's fantastic. I think that gives us a really broad outline of what a B Corporation is. And as we were chatting with you the other day, we're 7 months into the process now, and it is vigorous, but it's really rewarding, and it's incredible. And we're actually at the auditing point, so we passed the points test, and but yes, I think what is really important about it is that it's about sustainability across social, governance and environment. So when people think of sustainability, I think a lot of the time they think just of the environment, and it's actually about businesses sustaining and more so specifically when we talk about it, our events, having sustainability. Do you have any examples of global companies sort of leading the way in all aspects of sustainability, so not just environmental?
Sure. So it's always good to think about who is a B Corp, and one of our best known in the world, and you mentioned earlier, is Patagonia. And Patagonia is at its heart an apparel business, is what mostly it does, although it's moved into different areas and got a division now producing food. But Patagonia is a great example of a business that takes a lot of consideration of not just what it does and how it does it, but why it does it. And their vision is they're in business to save the home planet. And whilst that sounds quite grand, they live it. They focus on everything they do to try and improve outcomes for the environment. But that focuses very deeply beyond just a traditional sense of what's our environmental footprint. They look at their impact on people and communities and the places that they operate in. They have incredible programs for how they manage their people. They were leaders in the US in the first wave, for instance, of COVID, where they took approaches of closing down their shops and factories to try and protect the safety of their workers well in advance of requirements to do so.
They also have a foundation, don't they? 1% for the planet, which actually isn't just profit that they make. There's all other brands that have now come on board, and it's 1% of profits go to this 1% for the planet, which gets put back in to environmental charities. Is that correct?
Correct. So, they've been an innovator in that space. There's a few different programs now, like 1% for the planet, that are really designed to get businesses to make commitments to giving back, rather than necessarily waiting for a good year where maybe they say, hey, we're going to donate something to charity or to our own foundation. By embedding it into the business model, it not only acts as a really important discipline to keep them giving, but it also acts as a conversation that they can have with their customers and their suppliers and their workers around what the net benefit of being a part of this business is and what the benefit of supporting that business is. So I think that it's a good example of that kind of holistic approach to managing impact. Yeah. I think it's a really good way to illustrate what is a pretty significant evolution of the idea of sustainability from some of the earlier concepts of corporate social responsibility, where a business might think about what it does with its profits or with its resources, It might support a particular cause or run its own foundation, which is a brilliant thing to do, and I don't take away from it. But the evolution is to not just think about what you do with the profits you make, but to think about how it is that you make them. And it's probably true for the vast majority of businesses that they can actually have significantly more impact by focusing on how it is that they run their business and the decisions, everyday decisions they make in sourcing power, in employing people, and thinking about where they're purchasing their raw materials. Being really intentional about how you make those decisions gives you a chance to have enormous impact, probably far beyond the net money you can even donate at the end of a value proposition.
I highly recommend to anyone watching or listening to actually get Yvon Chouinard. Is that how you pronounce his name? Yep. So he is the founder of Patagonia, and he wrote a book called Let My People Go Surfing. And it's actually their brand book. Well, it started as their brand book and is now a commercial book. And that actually set CT and I off on our own experience trying to find out how to be a better brand and how to make the world more sustainable while still making a profit and having a purpose. So, highly recommend that to everyone. Livvy, sorry, we've kept you over there quiet for a bit. Sorry. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, about your career in behavioural and social change?
So, my background, so we mentioned before, I came over to Australia in 2012 and did some work with you guys. And while I was over in Australia, I was in awe of Mother Nature, and I had this light bulb moment, which lots of people do when they decide, oh my God, I need to get involved with sustainability. And when I came back to the UK, I started the journey in finding out how I could get involved in sustainable events. And this journey took me to do some training, some ISO 20121 training. I did some volunteering. I decided I really wanted to address the wastefulness of the industry. And then I started working with Shambhala Festival. And we did lots of, when I was working with Shambhala, we brought in a behaviour change consultant to address things like the littering and encourage more people to do recycling. And the behaviour change concepts from behavioural psychology were just like light bulbs, because it explained why so many people don't do these behaviours that environmentalists want us to do and what the barriers are. And so I went on then to do a behaviour change MA module, and I work with a charity called City to Sea who do plastic campaigning and plastic reduction. And so I was able to use those principles on a campaign that we launched called Refill, which is about carrying a reusable water bottle, but making the water stations available everywhere by being able to go and fill up in a cafe. And in the UK, we don't have the fountains that you have in Australia because it's not warm enough and they got taken away. So instead of us trying to put in water fountains, it became, they're not safe, or people didn't want to manage them. So instead of trying to put in water fountains, we've got cafes, and there's an app. And it's this way of thinking about what is the behaviour that we want people to do to be sustainable, and how do we break down the barriers that there are and lots of the social norms that prevent these behaviours.
Cool. And so now you've been involved in you've been on a global scale now, working with the Sustainable Event Alliance and driving change through that, which has been quite incredible to watch in the last year.
Well, it's been amazing. Lockdown has been amazing for seeing. There's been a definite surge within the events industry, especially corporate events now, in wanting to make change and adopt sustainability. And a lot of event managers want to make the change, but they're kind of stopped by the brands or the businesses they work for. But lockdown has meant they've all got online. They're all doing training. I've been really busy doing training. The Sustainable Event Alliance had 500 people join their hackathon. So there's a sense that people want to come back and do things differently.
Andrew, you came from a legal background. What was the motivation to move to a more sustainable career path, as we've just sort of heard Livvy's shortened version? It would just be great to hear yours.
Yeah, are you looking for that moment when, as a lawyer, I looked in the mirror and was just like,
it's got to be something more than this.
It didn't quite work out that way. in fact, I had a very strange career path, but probably the biggest change for me is that I stepped in with my wife to run a family business, and it was a circumstance where my father-in-law actually became ill and passed away, and we had to take over a complex business, and it really resulted in a very different focus. I went from big business to small business, but having a focus on family business really was the biggest change, thinking about not so much just performance and thinking more about stewardship and custodianship of a business in the long term, was a very different mindset. And that really forces you to think about factors other than short-term performance, and it forces you to think much more broadly about why it is that you're in business, because you're in business and the family lines get blurred. So for me, that was the biggest change. I think then, having worked across big business and small business and started my own businesses as well in a couple of areas, I really started to pay attention to the power of business. And we're at a fascinating time when there are a significant number of corporations moving around the world who have more cash and more power than plenty of governments. And on the face of it, that's terrifying, but at the same time, it's an enormous opportunity because business can scale and solve problems at a rate faster than government. So what I love about the B Corp movement is that it's not so focused on the sort of naming and shaming side of calling out bad performance, although there are some important institutions that do that. It's more focused on highlighting the good that business can do. It's an inherently positive story. It's about highlighting really high-performing businesses. And that's what's inherently most interesting to me, because I think, having worked in different structures, I'm a creature of for-profit business. That's what I've grown up with, and I've started a couple of businesses. And when you can connect a business to a bigger issue of solving a problem or just helping deliver value, then that's when you also create the best businesses. So I think that connecting a business with a purpose is not only a great thing for solving social problems, but it's also the best way to run a business. It's certainly the most rewarding way as well.
Yeah, I think that in the foundation of all this, it's about social change, isn't it? And so personally, we all have something that changes us, and all of those people that come together provides a social or behavioural change. Livvy and I have had quite an extensive conversation about this previously, around how events are currently, I don't know what the word is, how behaviour change has worked in events in the past.
Shall I go into a bit about
Sorry.
Yeah. So behaviours are very much driven by, and in events, we're social creatures, so we're driven by what other people do around us, and we look for cues from other people. So events are a space where people will follow a social norm, and those events will be very driven by that. And we're also very much driven by the infrastructure around us. So if your event gives away bottled water on arrival and you only have disposable cups, that will drive those behaviours. And you could write on your website, please bring your water bottle. But if people know they're going to get a free water bottle on arrival, they're not going to bring their reusable water bottle. If you take away the disposable water bottle, then people will have to do it. So it's very much about
people listening.
Livvy
has just picked up her reusable water
bottle. You can do the animations.
Yeah.
So behaviours are very much driven by infrastructure and social norms. And so if you want to change these, you need to change the infrastructure and change those social norms and those expectations of people. And so in the UK, there was a whole initiative where a couple of summers ago, all the festivals in a particular group said, we're going to not plastic, we're getting drastic on plastic, and we won't be selling bottled water. So that then changes the norm and those behaviours for all of the festival season. So then people get into the habit of carrying the reusable water bottle. And this is the thing, particular people. So there's lots of studies done on how people behave when they go to football stadiums, whereas they wouldn't do those behaviours when they're at home. So if you want to address change, you really understand what are those behaviours of your core audience and how you can activate change within them.
Can I just ask, when all these festivals decided to do that, was there, sorry, this is not a question that I have asked you before, was that something that event organisers were a bit concerned about? Because what if all these people going to festivals, they were drinking, they were maybe taking drugs, and they needed water?
So with that, it's not that you just don't serve water. It means that then as an organisation, you have to actually put the infrastructure in place to provide the same amount of water as you were before. So it means having extra bowsers. It means paying for extra infrastructure, putting in extra taps. So it's not just you'd stop serving water. It does involve an additional cost. And for a festival, normally they make money off water. So it's a commitment to the environment, because actually you're losing a massive revenue stream. But the issue there's been a huge wake up with individuals, and plastic has been a big sort of light bulb moment for lots of people. So for festivals to say they're doing something that people can visually see, plastic was a good thing to take action on. The festival industry in the UK has been addressing energy for years. They've been looking at how they can reduce their energy, going to biofuels, solar panels in some. But can an audience see that? Is it exciting? Is it something they can, grab hold of? So plastic is a very visual indicator of our environmental impact, especially as, an events industry, because you see it all on the floor.
Yeah, and like we would say, we've been pushing towards that for the last few years, particularly with one of our series here, the Bloody Long Walk around Australia, and it has been a bit of a slow road to kind of to I guess train people, but we're definitely seeing in the past years there's or particularly last year, quite a big change. And then this year, we're obviously now forced into the removal of those sorts of things based on what's happening and all the restrictions that we have around it. So this is now an opportunity for us to be out there and get in front of it, and for people to actually bring their water bottles to the events. Yes, there is an additional demand on us to have additional water, because people will fill more with bottles and things like that. But it's an opportunity for us to now ingrain that into the event and moving forward into the years to continue that and change that behaviour. That's a small example, but I guess across the board, those are the sorts of things that the small decisions that we can push across events that can make that larger change.
Exactly, because one of the events where it's been really hard to make that change is running events, because there's a social norm and an expectation that as a runner you swig and drop because of your speed. Yep. And that I've been working on and off and having conversations with event organisers, and they just say the running fraternity it's not acceptable. Yet what do people do when they go out running when they're in training? Carry a reusable water bottle. And yep. But these, this is the strong sense of what should happen at this event. So if there are these things now which say can't happen anymore, then you get these changes because it has to change.
And it's part of a larger conversation around duty of care and things as well. But what says that the duty of care is at its best when people can swill water out of a cup and throw it on themselves and throw it on the ground. So we've obviously seen there's been some inventions like seaweed. For water, or fill them with whatever you want. Not really getting them in Australia. It's not really.
They did want to charge a fortune.
They wanted to carry them by person on plane, which we didn't think was gonna work for us for 100,000 units.
At that point, we were like, "Oh, the supply chain doesn't quite work with this one."
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
So I'm going to go back to Andrew on this, because I think what's really important that's come up is about changing infrastructure. And it's very important for us to do this in events, but also as brands coming onto events. There's some brands that get it, and there's some brands that don't get it. And Andrew has been worked with Intrepid Travel. And they change quite a few things to change social behaviours. Is that's fair to say?
Yeah, look, I think you will often and look, events enormously challenging for those reasons that you've just described to make some of these changes. And what you need is a supply chain of businesses who are into solving the same problems. I mean, if you turn around to your disposable cup provider who loves developing and selling disposable cups, and start talking to them about no longer using disposable cups, it's going to be a short conversation. You really need to have good, strong partnerships that are interested in the outcomes you're trying to achieve. And I think that, the example you referred to in Intrepid Travel, that they're developed travel, group travel products globally. They're an amazing Australian business. And they recognised one of their highest selling products involved lots of elephant tours in elephant tourism was a huge driver. But for a whole bunch of reasons, not least of which was cruelty to animals and exploitation of local communities, they made a decision to stop supporting or having elephant rides as part of their package tours. Now, that was one of their best sellers, and they literally said, we are no longer going to sell something that is very successful for us. But that's decision number one, and to a certain extent, whilst on the face of it a hard decision, that's the easy step. Because decision number 2, 3, 4, 5 for them was to then go into those communities and instead of just taking away demand, actually working with them to figure out how else can we bring Western tourists to your communities. And they've ended up supporting various different initiatives, but elephant conservation has become a huge tourism driver for them. They've actually helped create, if you like, an industry of elephant conservation by bringing people in who still wanted elephant experiences, but repackaging those experiences around the idea of conservation rather than what it used to be. So for me, the challenge that you face, it can only be met when you've got really robust business partnerships and you're all running in the same direction. You're actually saying, well, the point here is not to simply keep tourists happy or to keep our brand looking good by taking away a nasty product. Our point is to try and keep delivering value, but do it in a sustainable way. And sometimes that requires innovative thinking that you can't find in your organisation alone. You have to collaborate. You have to work with other people to find a solution to what is, on the face of it, some very challenging problems.
And so talking of collaboration, you've just done B Corp month. Can you explain to us what that was about? Because that was a month-long event, right?
Sure. So B Corp month for us is a campaign of activating our B Corp community to connect with each other. It's fairly internal campaign amongst B Corps. We are just starting to bring on some pretty significant big retail brands, like Kathmandu most recently. And once we get a few more in that area, and we'll be able to position our campaigns more externally to a consumer audience. But essentially, our focus this year was all about collaboration. We've recognised that in the face of a global pandemic, we need businesses to be supporting each other, businesses who are values aligned and trying to achieve solutions to the world's problems. They need to support each other in order to, first and foremost, stay in business. You can't be sustainable if you're not on some level profitable as a business. And so for us, it was really about driving that collaboration. And we found some really interesting conversations another good example is Intrepid's just released on its blog a comprehensive 10-step guide to taking your business to carbon zero. That kind of open source collaboration is a great feature of quite a few B Corps in sharing solutions that they've developed that actually have significant value in terms of cost savings and brand value generation. One of the global collaborations that I love is Allbirds, another B Corp who make incredible sustainable shoes. They're over a couple of $1 billion valuation now, great success story. And Allbirds have actually just announced a massive collaboration with Adidas. Now, Adidas is not a B Corp, but Allbirds is collaborating with what should be an arch competitor in the shoe industry to enable Adidas to create effectively a carbon neutral shoe. And without going down the rabbit hole, shoes are incredibly bad for the environment on a number of levels. So Allbirds shoes are amazing in terms of the material.
Livvy's nodding there.
Yeah.
Shoeless festival soon.
Yeah. So, the idea of collaborating with Adidas seems extraordinary, but it's a great idea. When Allbirds' mission is about creating more sustainable shoes, it makes perfect sense to collaborate with one of the world's biggest shoemakers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's furthering their mission.
I think collaboration is key moving forward, and that's how we're going to see a lot of innovation and a lot of change. CT or Livvy, I'm going to get you guys to jump in. How do you think that brands or events can learn from these examples that Andrew's just given us?
CT?
You go, Livvy. You're the expert here.
So one of the things I always say, and the things about working with your supply chain is exactly that you start to talk and you collaborate with your existing supply chain rather than going finding the most sustainable supplier straight away, because actually that's where you're going to achieve change, because you give them the opportunity to say, look, we want to do this, can you work with us? And that's the way that, again, we'll achieve greater change. And I always think the events industry is a consumer in the same way, as individuals are, and it has buying power. In the UK at the moment, there's about to launch a corporate events kind of alliance with loads of corporate event industry agencies who are coming together to say, okay, we want these things to be affordable. At the moment, when we go to our clients, we're competing, and this is a mindset issue, is where they say we can deliver the event for X, or we can deliver the sustainable event for X, Y, and Z. Which one would you like? And of course, they always go for the most the cheapest one. And then they're also, because they're worried that their competitors are going to undercut them. So if they can go to the sustainable suppliers, or they've got these things are readily available, and actually because there's so many people wanting them, the cost is then reduced, then the market is then a level playing field. So everyone can say that actually a sustainable event costs X and Y, it costs a bit more, but this is the only option. We don't do the cheap events anymore. And we're all on a level playing field. So it's that kind of thing with where the industry actually comes together to say this is how we're going to deliver it, and then the suppliers can also meet that demand because there's a demand for it.
How do you think the events industry is going to react to that? Look, we're in a recession right now. By the fourth quarter, because we had the bushfires, will be probably announced that we're in a depression. So to be able to communicate to brands and to event organisers that actually this is the right thing to do, it's not necessarily about profit this year, it's just about being sustainable. Is there financial implications further to making a sustainable event, or is there ways that they can not spend more money?
CT, do you want to jump in on this?
There can be cost implications, but there are also very simple things that can be done. And I guess an example of that is, even from our point of view, from our side, working with our partners, all of our projects have a minimum of 2 of the UN SDGs implemented across the board. And we aim to incorporate more, obviously. But we're very upfront about our approach with our partners. And it allows us to align with a like-minded approach, or align on values, as Andrew was saying. I'm not sure.
Just explain, just for people watching, what the UN Sustainable Development Goals are.
Want me to list them out?
Pardon? Well, no. So basically,
add all their subcategories.
Not the subcategory. So we will post the 17 goals on our Facebook group after this. So essentially, there's 17 very simple goals for the world to work together for a more sustainable world. Now, What we would like to do is use 2 of them in each of our event, and when our partners work with us, we ask them which 2 they more align with. And that could be something as simple as you've got some leftover fruit and you give it to Wires, or you give it to homeless charity. It can literally be, good health and well-being. We do exercise events, we do fitness and health events. So actually just looking at them, and that's a simple change, but it highlights, I think, to brands and to suppliers that you're looking at this and you want them to acknowledge, and you want them to start thinking about it as well.
And probably you go, Louis. Sorry.
I was going to say, in terms of the financial aspects, I think the events industry has a massive opportunity. So in behaviour change, we talk about moments of change, and moments of change are when suddenly your behaviours come into view and you're like, do I want to do this anymore? And COVID-19 has been a moment of change. And if we start again, can we start doing things differently? So can we approach events completely differently and say, okay, we're going to design the next 6 months of events using props or infrastructure that we could actually reuse at other events, and we design it so that it's you rebuild and then break down, and we don't do this linear economy, build, dispose method, and we start thinking about things like the circular economy, where actually if you keep something in use, it may cost more upfront, but then you can keep using it, and then your costs actually are played out throughout the year.
I think that's a great point, Livvy, and I think that that it's very easy for me as an intermediary to say, oh, don't worry about the competitors undercutting. You just talk about purpose and you'll win the business. I appreciate it's harder than that, and I appreciate in any industry going through change, you always have those difficult times where you know you're going to get undercut. But I think increasingly businesses, especially bigger businesses, are having conversations about why they're in business. They're articulating purposes. They're articulating solutions they want to be part of. They're using frameworks like the SDGs. And I think if you've got a potential client who's in that space, if you can have a conversation about what problems that business is engaged in, how they're working around running their business, and you're talking to them about an event that's designed to complement those areas, then you're already having a conversation that puts you in the space that you need to be in to be able to have those more challenging conversations about potentially some increased costs. I think also, Livvy, having an industry-wide conversation is critical about lifting standards. I think we do see examples where people are moving fast. I mean, fascinating to me how quickly in Australia the idea of a takeaway coffee cup has become quite toxic. And if you're at the coffee stand and you haven't got your keep cup, then you feel quite awkward. And I will literally just say, well, look, I'm just going to spend 5 minutes of my life and drink my coffee here if I don't have my
I walked around Coles the other day with like this because I forgot my bag. And I was like, I don't want to be that person with a plastic bag.
Yeah, bags in supermarkets, another great example. That was a really tortured process of eliminating them. And the supermarkets, the big chains, flip-flopped a little bit. And it wasn't for lack of good intention. It was trying to balance consumer demand and understanding where is the customer at in this. And I think businesses always have to try and be leading, not following, because if you're following, then you know you've got some competitors that are leading and you're behind the eight ball. But absolutely acknowledge that is a challenging place to be in when you're leading. I think that there's a great Mickey article that people could find if they Google it, I'm sure, that talks about purpose being the new superpower of business, and a clearly articulated purpose that you don't just talk about in your marketing, that you actually bring to life across your business, enables you to build much stronger relationships, loyal customers, increasingly cut your costs. I mean, environmental solutions are becoming cheaper. Green power is becoming cheaper, and that cost curve has been so much faster in its downward trajectory than people thought it would be. So I think to be at the forefront of some of these conversations, I accept is challenging in the short term, but will most often pay a dividend in the long term by being that leader rather than the follower.
And just to jump in on the financial piece, with sustainability, quite often what people in events, people think it's about switching materials, and the sort of the green option or the new option is quite often more expensive. So they say, well, it costs more to be green, but actually being sustainable isn't about just switching materials. And actually the circular economy would say you should be choosing things that you could reuse and you keep using for longer, which is actually will save you money in the long term. But actually what you need to do in terms of your budgets is take a holistic approach and say, okay, we're going to save money on our energy, or we're going to save money because we're not actually making this thing, and we're going to use this pot to pay for that thing that is more expensive. So it's a kind of a mind shift, and also you can see, and I see ways that you can generate money to then use that for something. So I know things are a bit different in Australia, but in the UK, a lot of festivals will charge quite a high amount of money for the car parking. And what that does is it pushes people to then lift share, so that you reduce the amount of cars that people bring to the site, which means you don't have to pay to rent as many fields, which then also means you're reducing the amount of cars, which reduces your carbon footprint. So they're using financial mechanisms to change the behaviour. And then at Shambhala, what they used to do was take that money and then use it to help with a shuttle bus from the train station, or to supplement coaches bringing people from major cities. So again, it's all about this infrastructure, but they're using Peter to play Paul.
Yeah, and I think as consumers, I mean, Livvy, as you were blowing up my dream of going to Burning Man earlier.
Good intro.
Thanks for that.
He's gonna educate everyone and to take home and reuse.
It's only because can't fly that I'm now. I have to boat my way there. So.
For everyone there, Livvy is on a 1-year no-fly.
Yeah, no-fly 2020.
You picked the right year for that, Livvy.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us are flying this year.
I'm sorry, Andrew. We interrupted you there.
I was just going to say, I mean, we're all consumers as well, and we need to keep asking the right questions. And you're right, the idea that we all feel proud because we take our waste away is only as good as where we end up putting it. And I think that you're right to say something might on the face of it look more expensive, but that's only because we're not understanding the cost of the plastic that we're throwing away. And it's the idea of internalising externalities is certainly not a new idea, and there's been so many different mechanisms for trying to achieve it. But to me, it's a fundamental philosophy. If you're in business for good, you're really thinking right down to where does my rubbish go when it goes out the door? One of our B Corps in Melbourne, an architecture firm called Clark Hopkins Clark, created this magnificent video where they actually just emptied their office bins for a week and put it all into the car park and went through it. It's a really funny video. It's a bit gross. But they literally just went through their office bins and started exploring what's in our office bins and what can we do about it. And they cut their waste by some ridiculous percentage. It sometimes just takes a bit of old-fashioned dirty work to just problem solve your way through a situation until you know you've got to a good solution.
I feel like we've gone there in our own small way too. With we also now have a worm farm in our office and all sorts of things.
Yes,
so on a small scale,
named 400 of them poo-poo face, 400 of them fart face, and then we've got Caesar and Bob and Jane. I don't know who we've got.
Anyway, we didn't go that far, but we've certainly had a look at it.
Is there any benchmarks for sustainability within marketing or within events right now in the world?
So in the events world, there's ISO 2012-1. I don't know whether it's an international ISO standard. It was developed with the
ISO
2012-1. So it was developed for the 2012 Olympics in the UK, and it was heralded as the game changer. And probably a few Olympics have done it since. In Europe, they love it because they love the paperwork aspect of it. In the UK, no event managers like paperwork, so they don't do it. And it's really fallen by the wayside. Well, there you go. It didn't make its way to Australia.
Well,
so
we don't like paperwork here.
There is going to be a lot of links on our Facebook group after this.
Paperwork's been outlawed here.
Well, it's a waste of paper for a start.
It is, that's right.
So unfortunately not. There's lots of associations who are doing things like the Sustainable Event Alliance, which you can, get involved with. But and what else is there? In the UK, there's different sort of a greener festival, which go and do actually they're worldwide. A greener festival do assessments. They do assessments in Australia, and they will come and assess your event. I'm a greener festival assessor too, and then now I'm doing not just festivals, other events, but in terms of a standard to work towards, not really.
Right.
I'm dreaming of the days where I can bring in my solar power and wind related items to run our events.
Just to put up an arc.
We have been actually for the last year or so. We've been actually working through ways that we might be able to start to incorporate, particularly solar. Otherwise, I'll be riding a bike next to things, trying to power things, but little spin classes or something. Everyone taking a turn.
Well, there were some amazing generators that were used by the construction industry and the events industry in the UK, and they were hybrid. So they were pre-charged before the event, and then they had a solar panel on them, and then they could be refueled with waste vegetable oil.
Yep.
And so these were great. And then something happened. I think they got bought out by another construction company that then quickly went bust. And
Yep.
then they're kind of on some heap somewhere waiting for someone. It'll be sold off very cheaply, and no one knew the value of them.
We're getting a hybrid large generators here that certainly have capacity for large events and things like that, but it's still, it's still charging them and with batteries and whatever. So, it's still not there yet.
And this is the whole thing about the interconnectedness and the supply chain, is those things have a demand in the construction industry because they're used all year round. In the UK and probably in Australia, your summer event season is short, so people aren't going to supply this to the events industry. They need customers all year round.
You know what, Livvy? Most of our events are winter.
Okay. Oh yeah, of course it's too hot.
Well, no, it depends what you do. So festivals, they're over the summer, whereas sporting events are in the winter. So it's just maybe that we're so far away from everywhere else in the world that it's just not made it here yet. And
some of those hybrid ones have sort of come about through construction and like roadworks and things being in such remote locations and not being able to fuel them all the time. So they have kind of created these things. But you would think with the country that we have, with so much heat, light, and that we would be.
Sustainability is also about, things like gender equality and quality education and, not just about environmental, I think is something we also need to keep in mind with our events when hiring and when looking at different options for who our suppliers are and where they come from. Now, Andrew, you're back in lockdown right now in Melbourne. Livvy, are you out of lockdown yet?
Maybe briefly. It's sort of selective, but if we want to go on holiday anywhere, we have to go in quarantine afterwards. Virtually, it's ever changing.
Yeah, and the same here. We are not in lockdown, but we have a pretend fence around Greater Sydney right now. But with that, this is more around, I suppose, businesses and how businesses are thinking at the moment. Is Andrew, do you have like any trends that you've seen for brands that are approaching yourself over the last few months? Do you think that the conversation has changed? Do you think that COVID has been a catalyst for social change?
Yeah, I'm strongly resisting the urge to confidently predict what life's going to be like post-COVID, because I think far too many people are doing it, and
we all like a crystal ball.
Yeah, we do all like a crystal ball. One of the things that we did confront quite early on is a lot of people said to us, "Well, you're in an area of you're in a classic fair weather type proposition. It's when businesses are doing well, they want to look at how they're operating and improve their sustainability. Surely you're going to struggle in a downturn." And whilst I think the economic impact is very much yet to be seen, the fascinating thing is we've experienced a worldwide spike in demand for our assessment platform. So our assessment platform, it's called the B Impact Assessment. You can find your way there through our website, which is bcorporation.com.au. Our assessment platform is designed to be self-guided, so any business can do it, and you don't even have to necessarily be wanting to become a certified B Corp. You can just be doing it to manage your own impact across all those criteria. So, giving you the context, we've had about a 95% growth in terms of interest or businesses signing up to use that platform through the calendar year 2020. 58% growth in the Australia-New Zealand region. A staggering increase in demand. And again, I would love to confidently tell you exactly why that is, but I'm not going to be so confident. However, I think that it's undeniable that we were already in a time where there was a lot more expectation on business to be transparent about how it operates, to be connected to a broader purpose. And I think that trend has only been accelerated as people are becoming much more attuned to who they're doing business with, whether in business or as consumers, and that they want to support businesses who are part of the broad solution, not the problem. I think you're seeing that in a lot of evidence coming out of various studies saying that people are interested in and willing to pay more for ethical or sustainable products. So there's a whole bunch of evidence telling us why, but the simple fact is we've seen this spike in demand and we're thrilled with it. Our biggest challenge is meeting that demand. But I think that, people are interested in who they're purchasing from. They're interested on the investment level as well. Ethical investing is also experiencing a significant drive in demand, and various ethical investment funds are outperforming non-ethical based funds. So there's a lot of different evidence points that tell us, I think, that we are at a time where just as the power and significance of business is at an all-time high, so grows the expectations on business to operate ethically and sustainably.
Yeah, should I reel out some of the facts from lockdown on consumers? So during April, worldwide, there was a 455,000% increase in the search how to live a more sustainable lifestyle. There was a survey done with UK and US participants, and they found that 80% said they would be prepared to take the same or make similar sacrifices for climate change as they had for COVID-19. 57% of those said waste, 50% of those said plastics. There was also there's a massive expectation that brands were going to be making their products more, being more transparent about their impacts. And there's a massive connection between personal health and planetary health. And COVID-19 has shone a light on all the inequalities, the social inequalities, the environmental issues, and it's made people have stopped and realise what's important to them. So people are more connected with their communities, with their families, and that means this moment of change. There's a lot around COVID-19 being a moment of change, and people really stopping and having time to think. That's why the Black Lives Matters, I think, and lots of people have said, have gained so much traction because people weren't distracted by everything else that was going on, and people are now thinking about what really matters.
Yeah. CT, I'm actually going to finish it with you, because we've had quite a few chats about this, about what opportunities there are for events to make a positive impact in the world.
Yeah, look, I guess when we always talk about it, we think about events as creating memorable experiences and lasting experiences, and I think within that, and this is touching on a lot of things that have been said today, that events have an opportunity to be the voice of the community, to change mindsets, and also to lead the conversation, which Livvy was touching on earlier on, and also to lead the social change. I think there's an enormous amount of opportunity for events in our industry to have a real positive impact.
Cool. Look, that brings us to the hour, and that was a really lovely conversation. There is more. We could go for another hour, I think, and it was so lovely to hear from you. Now, it's not something that we usually do either, is plug our guest products, but I really encourage you to go to B Corporation website, have a look at the assessment if you're a brand. Also, unfortunately this year it was cancelled, but there is a B Corp Champions Retreat in Tasmania in March in 2021, if you're more interested in finding out about that. And then also Livvy has an incredible website called Sustainable Sidekicks if you want to ask her any questions or get in touch about
get some more stats,
more sustainable.
Yeah, there's lots of stats, and there's lots of training about how to adopt a sustainable events mindset. So I've and how to create a sustainability policy and things like that, so you can actually take action, because it's great talking about it, but the change won't happen if we just sit around and talk. We need to start making those changes.
Cool. Well, thank you both so very, very much. That is the end of episode 9, Leading Social Change. So if you haven't already, please join our Facebook group, which is the Shift Panelcast. I will also add up on there the SDGs, the UN SDGs. I'll have a look at the purpose being the new superpower of business. We'll have a Google on that and post that up. Now, also, we've got some very exciting news. After 17 years of Wingman events and 9 years of Sorted events, we've decided to close the doors on those agencies. I will be transitioning to CEO of the Shift Corp, and CT has been appointed COO. So the Shift is a growth marketing agency with events at the centre of our creations. Our new website will be launching very soon, hopefully later this week, or maybe even by the time we get off this panelcast, which is The-Shift.Agency. We are sad to see the end of an era, but I think it's time to move forward into the future.
That's exciting.
In a more sustainable way. So as
you're being the change.
Pardon?
You're being the change we want to see in the world, leading by example. That's how you do it.
So as always, please pay it forward. We love to hear from you, love to hear your suggestions. Thank you so much, Livvy and Andrew. That was really amazing.
Thanks, Hayley. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much,
Thank
guys.
you. Nice to see you all.
When all is said and done, what will you say? That you conquered the dizzying heights or got dizzy? Will you say that you stood with your brothers and sisters or found family along the way? When all is said and done, what will you say? That you told your own story or helped others live theirs? Will you say that you uncovered long-lost secrets or discovered a secret way to get lost? When all is said and done, what will you say? That you connected people with ideas and objects? Or that you brought ideas and objects to the people? Will you say that you shifted expectations? Or the ground shifted beneath your feet? When all is said and done, what will you say?